they basically have him cornered when they shoot him, but you're saying that he's coming at them, which is why they shoot him. But in the video, and maybe I just missed it, it looked like he was kind of backing up.
Correct.
And then he fell. He had already been shot and took some steps back and then fell, or was he backing up when they shot at him?
He backs up out into the alcove, and the civilian witness confirms this as well, that he backs up off screen and then starts coming out of it. So it's a little bit deceptive because you don't have that on video. But that's why I noted for you, the importance of that civilian witness. It's not just the police officers saying this. In fact, the civilian witness used the word lunge at the police officers. The police officers never used that word. So, but they all are consistent that he goes into the alcove off screen. He's looking around. I don't know if he's looking for a way out or a way to attack. We don't know. But he backs up. That's what's critical. And then he starts coming forward again with the knife. So they have to make choices. And I told you what the 3 choices are. And they had to make the difficult choice to do what they did, and actually it hits them low and still cause the result of the loss of life. So that's why I can't emphasize enough that civilian witness who's right behind Nauman, looking straight at him.
And both shots were fired just right like that. He misses the first one.
There's about a second in between, so he actually has an opportunity to stop again, and he chooses not to do it. So that's the second time he's been shot at. He's been tased. He's been tased and hit once, tased and missed another time. He's been told time and time again to stop, get down on the ground, and he makes his choices again. I can't speculate what's going on in his mind, but the police officers don't have to wait to find out with whether with a knife in their throat. They've got to do what they've got to do. They have a right to stand their ground as civilians do. We talk about that the change in the law. The police officers actually have more authority based on what I read, but there's just no question in my mind. They did what they had to do and made that difficult choice, and a person's life is lost, unfortunately.
The video shows him being shot 4 minutes before you show this initial scene, which says 7:15, and you said the cameras aren't calibrated.
Right, the cameras are not calibrated.
Isn't that can you explain why they're not calibrated to
No.
the right time? Isn't that a broader problem for solving all kinds of problems and crimes in the city if the cameras aren't on the same time?
Well, you got to understand these are private cameras. So one is Community Safety Coalition video, the other 2 are private cameras. So there's no authority by me or the police to tell them to calibrate their cameras. The nice thing is, common sense, you could see that they're not calibrated. You know where the incident started and follow down. So for my purposes, the exact time stamp of it is really not relevant. What's more important is the content and substance of what's on there.
And did you say there was an operator for this initial video at the Lancaster Safety Coalition?
Correct.
Zooming in and out and monitoring the situation?
Right, and then after the police get there, he basically, he sees a guy urinating on the street. It's called in as an indecent exposure. This isn't the biggest priority in his mind. He has no idea, and the police officers have no idea it's going to turn into this. My understanding from what his statement is, he turns his attention away to other things, so then it's just left on automatic. Had he known Mr. Bain was going to attack him with a knife, I'm sure that he would have made efforts to manipulate that camera to follow it as much as possible. But he thinks, and I think all of us do, when you see that initial encounter, there's nothing going on. The delatory's standing there talking to him. Delatory retreats. He tells him to step back. The only person really agitated is Mr. Bain. But even from that, there's nothing to indicate he's going to attack him with a knife. No one foresaw this.
So when he lunges, this camera was on automatic and the operator wasn't
Correct.
deliberately trying to show or not show the police officer?
Correct.
You said only one officer had the taser gun?
Correct.
Is it standard for all officers to carry taser guns?
I'll have to defer to the chief on that. I don't know whether you want to answer that.
Sure. We started using tasers in summer of 2009 after extensive training. Most patrol officers have been trained and certified. Part of that training is to actually be tasered before you're certified. So every officer that carries a taser has themselves been tased as part of the training. And not every patrol officer has it. The training takes a while, and at this point, probably 90% of patrol officers are certified in the use of that.
If you think, do you feel if he was tased again, he might have been knocked down?
Well, as the district attorney described, he had 2 cartridges. He used both cartridges. At that point, that was not an option any longer.
Of the 3 officers, how many were authorized to use a taser?
Officer Kaminsky, the one that fired.
The other 2 did not have tasers.
No, they have not received.
Did they have other non-fatal weapons to
Well,
use?
every police officer, in addition to a sidearm, carries an ASP. That's a collapsible nightstick, if you will. And there is absolutely no way I would expect a police officer with a 6'3", 220-pound man wielding a dangerous edge weapon to try and disarm him with a 2-foot-long ASP, because they don't have the luxury of getting a do-over in case they miss trying to get it out of his hand. And before the question's even asked, they all wear ballistic vests. Those ballistic vests are designed to protect them from gunfire. They only cover vital organs like the chest, the heart, the lungs. They do not protect you from neck wounds, underarm wounds, stomach wounds, leg wounds, back wounds. And not only that, the Kevlar in those vests is made to stop bullets. It does not necessarily protect you from edge weapons. It may protect you from a slicing wound, but it certainly will not protect you from a penetrating wound.
Did they have any other non-lethal weapons?
ASP
ASP, and that's it?
and mace,
Okay.
which certainly would be even more ludicrous to try to deploy mace in a foot pursuit and somebody wielding a knife. And mace, historically, is not very effective on people whose adrenaline is heightened or people that are mentally disturbed. That's
And-
just not an option.
And you have to remember that he actually was hit. He was tased, and it had no effect. So just moments before he's shot, the taser hits him, and it doesn't stop him. So
Was there only one? What's the phrase? Only one tase to him? Because he just said two, but I
there's
thought
two.
there was one.
He has two cartridges.
Okay.
When he's chasing him in that
Oh,
second
one
video,
that's-
he's got the taser deployed. He hits him with the taser. There's a prong that goes into his back neck area. He pulls that out. It has no effect. It doesn't stop him. At the Place Marie, he again deploys the second cartridge, and he misses. And that's the thing. It's like a moving target. It's not. They're not standing there in the training room. I mean, Jose Del Torre missed him twice with bullets, and I mean, he's not submitting, and it's a difficult situation. So
How many complaints are there against Officer De La Torre?
I'm not even going to address that question. It has nothing to do with today's topic.
There was
There's a
no
question
sound
over
on the
here.
video.
I'm going to take questions from the media first. Then, when they're all done with their questions, I will stay and answer the questions from the public.
I'm sorry, I am the media. You're
I'm gonna-
aware of that.
No, actually, I'm not. But I answered your question. There was a question over here.
Sir, to the chief. Chief, does it concern you that the taser doesn't work? Are there certain situations where they're not effective? I mean, does the prong have to extend a certain length?
Well,
and
again,
it
there's-
lessens its effectiveness?
The weapon is not 100% accurate, nor is any weapon that we carry. The taser was deployed properly. The taser struck the male. He actually pulled the prong out. Once the prong is out, it's absolutely in no effect. And the second time, why he missed, at that point, after a foot pursuit, after somebody coming at me with a knife more than twice now, he missed. And that was the last cartridge, and that was no longer an option. The taser is designed to prevent injury. Before tasers, police used nightsticks and blackjacks, which ultimately resulted in injuries to citizens as well as police officers. But no, it's not 100% effective. It was deployed properly, but it didn't work.
How much time passed from beginning to end of the whole incident?
I didn't actually sit down and add it up, and the reason I will give you the statements which have all the times from the different cameras. I mean, you basically saw most of the incident. I mean, he's running down from. This is not. I mean, a couple minutes. Do we have a time we can answer that with?
It's difficult.
I mean, it depends on when you talk about what's the beginning too. What's the beginning? What are you asking me is the beginning?
Right, from when the first officer arrived, when Officer De La Torre arrived.
Yeah, so he's there. Their contact is a little bit over 2 minutes long. I think I read it.
I believe from Lancaster County Radio, the timestamps that they had, and that's dependent on data entry, a dispatcher entering that data into their dispatch system. From the time Officer De La Torre arrived to they were requesting medical assistance or called out that there were shots fired. was approximately 2 minutes.
Right, and that's what we have in the report, about 2 minutes. Based on the timeline from the coalition video, Bain begins his forward attack 28 seconds after officers at the Dalatory, moves out of the camera to radio in Bain's information.
Does it concern you at all that you can't see what Officer Dalatory is doing in that initial lunge? You said there's no doubt in your mind that.
No, it actually doesn't.
It was unprovoked, but the camera angle doesn't show at all what he's doing.
Right. I'm not actually concerned because he's on the radio. We have him on the radio with Lancaster Countywide Communication. That's what he says took place. That's what the radio transmission transcripts confirm, and that's what Officer Kaminsky says. You can see that Officer Kaminsky, by his body language, is, I don't want to say disinterested, but I mean he's looking. He's not even focused on Bain at different points in time. He clearly doesn't anticipate anything's going on because there isn't even any interaction. At that point in time, what's taking place is Dalatory's calling it in. Kaminsky's just kind of standing there, and even the witness B, who was sitting there, says that the police during that tried to be cordial and to Mr. Bain.
Is there any way any of these witnesses are going to be, made public, like witness D, who saw the whole final incident? That all the video shows is feet.
I'm not going to release their names. I'm satisfied with the reports that I read and their statements. They've been cooperative with the police. They know who they are. If they want to contact the media, they can do that. I'm sure they'll know that I've released this, and I didn't ask them for permission to release their names. It's irrelevant to my determination. And
the officers' records of complaints, that other question, why do you feel like that's irrelevant to the case?
It's absolutely irrelevant to the case because my determination. So is Mr. Bain's criminal history. The fact that he has he has prior convictions doesn't matter. My analysis focuses on the fact whether Mr. Bain had any criminal record or whether he was clean. What I'm focusing on are these particular incidents on this particular morning, whether the police were authorized to use deadly force. There's no consideration in the law, nor should there be, that deadly force should apply differently based on whether somebody has a prior record or whether they don't have a prior record or whether the police have had complaints filed against them. We're talking about the taking of use of deadly force in someone's life. What had took place in their past, in anyone's past in this, is irrelevant to my determination. You go on the facts of that. No one's treated any differently. I don't treat Mr. Bain any worse because he had a criminal record. He's treated exactly the same as if someone didn't have it. And whatever, if the police, whatever complaints have been filed against them, absolutely irrelevant to my determination.
Well, isn't that the central question, though, is whether he had to die or whether something else could have happened? So why?
I think I've answered that question, and I have answered that question, and I've told you, and you're not going to get anybody that's going to tell you that in law enforcement that's going to tell you that anybody's prior record or the police officer's service record is relevant. What's relevant is, were they justified in using deadly force based on the facts that presented themselves? That's it. That's all. That's my determination. I'm not here to say anything beyond that. And I understand what you're saying, but it's irrelevant.
At the end of your comments that you spoke to somebody who knew Bain and that you weren't surprised, or that this person was.
That's irrelevant to my determination. That's just more corroboration. That's absolutely irrelevant to the legal determination as to whether it's justified. That's
Would the police officer's record be then more corroboration of whether he, never does this kind of thing, or whether it's.
I don't know how many times I've answered. I'll answer it again, I guess.
The police. Seems relevant.
And then we're going to have a difference of opinion. In my mind, the police officer's records are irrelevant. I have video evidence. I have civilian witnesses. I hope you're not suggesting that if a police officer had something in their past that maybe they didn't have a perfect record, that they should stand and allow somebody to stab them in the throat with a knife. That's absolutely absurd. They're relevant.
That's the question. No, that's not what I'm suggesting at all, but you said it's corroborating evidence that Bain, this person you spoke to, said Bain would have done this type of thing.
Well, he didn't specifically say he would have attacked a police officer. And that's merely going into some background of Mr. Bain. I think some of the questions going forward are trying to determine why Mr. Bain did this. That's not my part of my analysis and my conclusion. Whether he's a good person, a bad person, totally irrelevant. Obviously, there's a broader perspective of why we would like to know why he did this. That person that we grew up with provided some insight, but it is completely irrelevant to the determination that I made.
Right, so your analysis is only focusing on the actions of the police, correct?
Actions of everyone involved,
Right.
Mr. Bain as well.
And
Yes,
that
because
record is irrelevant of the police officers.
boy, all right, I'm just going to move on. I think I've answered that.
Craig,
Yeah.
Craig,
I have a complaint that
Craig.
was
Yeah,
lodged
Mr.
against
Hawks,
De
Mr.
La
Hawks.
Torre.
you've gone into detail about Officer De La Torre's decision to fire the fatal shot.
Right.
The two other officers did not fire. What was their position at that moment?
Okay, that's a good question. Officer Kaminsky was shifting now to his duty weapon. So remember, he had the taser out and he'd fired that. So he was not in a position to fire at that point in time because he was shifting to it. Officer Nauman had his weapon deployed and was ready to fire, and told his statement that had he not been shot by Officer De La Torre, Officer Nauman would have discharged his weapon and shot Mr. Bain.
So pulled, aimed, ready to shoot?
Yes, he was ready to shoot.
He was ready to shoot,
Yeah.
but he did not. Why did he pause? Did he pause?
Well, Officer De La Torre shot him before Officer Nauman did, and that's the facts. And he said he was going to shoot him. I mean, you could see how close he was to Officer Nauman. He was a few feet away, and nobody expects a police officer to wait till a man is this close at you with a knife. They were. Remember, from my legal analysis, there's the second prong that forcible felon who's fleeing, and you need the deadly force to overcome the resistance. They could have shot him running down the street. And so I think, and that's why I say, they all used incredible restraint, particularly going down to non-deadly force. I can't specifically answer why Officer Nauman waited 1/2 a second or 1 minute, 1 second beyond why Officer De La Torre did.
But his intention was he was going to shoot.
His statement to the police was, had he not been shot, had he not fallen, that he would have shot to protect his own life.
Okay. Second.
And had he shot, had Officer De La Torre not done it, I would have found Officer Nauman justified.
Question about process of this investigation. Is conducted by the city police department.
Yes.
Of their own members. And I understand that's apparently standard operating procedure, but the public may question whether that is the best way to proceed when you have a controversy like this.
Well, to me, this isn't a controversial case, but,
Well,
but I understand your question. I'll
just
answer
in
it.
general.
Yeah, in this case, it just doesn't matter because we have so much. We have the video evidence. I have all the civilian witnesses. I could take no statements from the police and just go on the video statements and the civilian witnesses and would come to the same conclusion. I think that's a good question. In my opinion, I believe that to avoid those kind of questions, that it might be better to have another department do it, but it matters not in this case, and that's a discussion that that's ongoing, and different departments handle it different ways. I find nothing inappropriate with what the police did here. I'm satisfied with the reports. I think it's a good question, and as I say, different departments handle it differently. But in this is not a detailed investigation. This is basically, what did you see? And we didn't have to get any informants or work. These are witnesses that we know who they are from the videos, and we're just asking them what they saw. And the interviews were over rather quickly with this. So I appreciate the question. I think, like I said, I'm cognizant of that. I have my own feelings on it, but in this case, it's just irrelevant.
What's the status of those officers? Are they?
I don't know.
Back to work?
I don't know, Chief.
Yeah, they will, Officer De La Torre is expected back to work within the next few days. The other two officers are back to work.
Did your legal analysis include Brower versus Inouye County, U.S. Supreme Court, 1989, which involved a case?
Let me hold you for a second. Any more questions from the media? I will answer your questions.
You said the witnesses were very cooperative with you. I mean, did they at all feel threatened by this guy as this was happening?
Well, I didn't read any statements that indicated that they personally felt threatened. Again, the two witnesses are in the car. The other witness is down the street. So I didn't get any indication from the reports that they personally felt threatened. Now, had they been out on the street, standing close to this guy as he's running with a knife, I think it'd be fair to conclude that anyone would have felt threatened by a large man who's running from the police with a knife like that. But they didn't specifically indicate that. The one individual, the main witness D, is sitting in his car a few feet away, but he's got an officer in between him and Mr. B. Anything else from the media at all?
A question for the chief. The DA focused on the legal aspect of this. I'm curious about just operating procedure aspect of this. Is there anything internal that the police department does to look further into what happened in terms of, you know, can we learn from this? Can we try to avoid something like this in the future?
Yeah, every incident is a learning opportunity. In this case, the officers followed proper procedure. The question earlier
You're
about...
saying, so no procedure was violated?
No, it wasn't.
Okay.
In addition, the question earlier about Officer De La Torre stepping out of view of the camera, tactically that was a sound move. He was using his radio to contact countywide radio. He distanced himself, which is appropriate because you can't be on the radio and focus on the subject at the same time. And probably, quite frankly, might even saved his life. If he stayed close to him while he's using that radio and that man pulled a knife out and attacked him, he probably would have got at him before he had a chance to defend himself. And also, as the district attorney mentioned, all of them showed extreme constraint. Well, under the law, they were allowed to, and somebody said trigger happy earlier, trigger happy would have been just indiscriminately firing at the male in a crowded intersection, multiple vehicles, multiple pedestrians. That didn't occur. The officer that was the initial attack, the one officer had a clear shot at him, but he didn't take it because if he missed, he would have hit any person or vehicle moving north on Queen Street. So that didn't occur. The only time that the second round of shots occurred when they literally had him in an alcove in front of a business that was closed at the time with no visible pedestrians behind him, and that was what I say that he showed restraint. Had he somehow got past them and started running again, no, they wouldn't have fired because they would have been back on Queen Street again with multiple people, multiple cars.
Was De La Torre the one that stepped out and raided it in? I thought he was the one that was standing there like this.
No,
it's Kaminsky.
Oh, Kaminsky is standing there.
yes.
Okay.
In terms of the camera timestamps, you said the discrepancies because some are private, some are Lancaster's Public Safety Coalition.
Yes.
Are those Safety Coalition cameras all calibrated to the exact same time?
I believe they are. I'm not 100% sure, but I think they are. Yes. Chief's saying yes.
Is there any documentation to show that Mr. Bain did have a mental illness or anything like that?
I'm not aware of any documentation that he did, and one of the things that you're looking at too is the police noticed that he's making some bizarre statements, and they make the code that I described to themselves. But there's nothing. We have that 302 commitment. He has to demonstrate he's a danger to himself or others. He's not demonstrating a danger to himself or others by talking some bizarre things at that point in time. So they really have no option. There seems to be. He's making they believe that he might have been mentally ill based on his statements. Anything else? I do have written reports for the media, as well as you can look at the still I took a number of still photographs from the videos, as well as the photographs from his possessions. If you want to do that, you can also take photographs of the knife. Anything else from...
Copies of the video, or you don't have that?
I do not have copies of the video, no.
Is that something you can release? Can we get copies of the video?
I've shown you the videos. All there is. I didn't anticipate handing out copies to everybody. I've shown them all to you. Let me think about it. I didn't really even think about it. I thought that, I've made the point to show you the videos. There's nothing hidden.
I mean, for my purpose, I don't need it, but if you're able to load it up on like a website or something like that, it's probably the easiest way to distribute.
Okay.
Can I just go back to, I have one more question about the mental illness thing. I mean, how can you determine that versus, maybe him being drunk?
And I don't know that.
Okay.
Again, and that's not relevant to my determination. I merely bring that up because it's part of the police officers have that communication with themselves saying, hey, this guy might be a little mentally ill. And that's as far as it went. So you're absolutely right. He could have been high. There's, you'll see in his possessions here, there appear to be synthetic marijuana. We don't have the toxicology reports. There was nothing that the police officers indicated to me that indicated he was drunk. But when I say, I'm not saying he's mentally ill, I'm saying the police felt that what's come to the comments, he was talking to himself, talking about, I don't know, coming aliens or something like that. You know, it was a little bit bizarre, and that they noticed that themselves. Yes.
If the police do believe somebody is mentally ill, do they have a different set of different protocols?
Yeah, they're looking out.
How do you deal with somebody you believe is mentally ill versus somebody you
Well, I mean, you're getting beyond the scope of really what I'm here for. I'm here for to say is it justified. Obviously, the police do get training.
Well, but we're told that they follow procedure.
I'm trying to answer a question.
Yeah, but the
I'm
chief
answering,
said
I'm
that
answering,
they follow procedure.
Mr. Harper, either be quiet or I'm going to ask you to remove yourself. I'm answering her question. I'm asking, do you expect to be treated courteously?
No, because you're not treating, you're ignoring my questions.
You've
ignored my, I asked
Mr.
before
Harper,
she asked that question.
Get him out of here. Mr. Harper, she asked me a question, I'm trying to answer and you're not allowing me to answer.
Mr. Stedman?
Okay, your question again.
Is there a separate set of procedures if the police do believe that somebody's mentally ill? And maybe that's a better question.
That's not a question for my analysis.
Okay. Is there a separate set of procedures?
In a calm situation, in a non-threatening situation, in a situation where somebody's perhaps mentally ill, who's not pulling a knife and attacking police officers, there's certainly plenty of time to make that determination and handle it, whereas maybe attempt to get a 302 commitment. But I don't know if you're aware of the Mental Health Act in 1976. It's pretty comprehensive, and you cannot commit somebody just for ramblings. And even if he chose not to do what he did, and the officers tried to get a 302 commitment on him, they most likely would not have been successful in attaining that, because it's not against the law to ramble. The Mental Health Act clearly states that you just can't commit somebody because they walk the streets and ramble.
Anything else? Okay. Here's copies of the report if you want it.